When we meditate, the same region in our brain is associated with meditation, is the same region in our brain that is associated with willpower. So when you meditate, you're actually strengthening that area in that region of the brain that's responsible for willpower. So it's actually linked, and there have been MRI studies to prove this.
And it's interesting you say that, because even with my clients, sometimes, whether they want to lose weight, whether they're trying to improve a health condition, the clients that I have given sort of a specific meditation, they're the ones that actually find it easier to follow through with a plan. Welcome to Tell Me More with Monisha Mahtani, the podcast where we explore the story between the question and the transformation. This episode is sponsored by Nutrition Band, a platform with affordable healthy meal plans, programs, and recipes. Today's guest is a dear friend and a powerful teacher, Pamela Puja Kirpalani. She's an NLP trainer, behavior coach, and the author of the book, Whole, 11 Universal Truths for an Inspired Life. We're talking about language, attention, and small daily tools that shift how you feel, choose, and live. I'm really excited to get started, Puja. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you so much, Monisha. I'm so excited to be here as well. And before this started, I was just thinking, how long have we known each other? I would say about 18 years now, or maybe even 19.
Yes, absolutely. And I miss you daily, and it's lovely to have you here today so that we can have this wonderful conversation and for our audience. And I think it'll be very useful.
Yeah. So it's going to be great, and I'm really looking forward to speaking to you because you've been such an inspiration to so many people yourself for so many years.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. And I'm always inspired by you as well. So it's nice that we're sort of supporting each other in this way.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to start off with NLP. It's about how language and attention shape our state, choices, and results. We all use sort of language and pattern every day. Can you give me a little bit more information about that?
Sure. Okay. So you've heard of the phrase mind over matter, right? You've probably heard of that. So neurolinguistic programming is really about understanding how that works. So how the language that we use and the patterns in our thinking, and how they shape the way that we feel and how we act. Okay, let's break down the name. So neuro really means the brain. That's, where our thoughts, our emotions, and the way our nervous system responds to or processes experiences, right? And then you have the linguistic. Now, the linguistic bit is the language. It's not just how you speak to others. It is literally the words you also say to yourself, which quite honestly, most of the time we've become so numb to because we're so used to speaking to ourselves in a certain way. Perhaps we were conditioned to as a child, and, we're not even aware of it. So it's about like understanding how you speak to yourself. What's that language? And I remember when I first did my first NLP course, I could hear these thoughts running through my mind like, oh, wow, I can't believe I keep saying that to myself. So it's really very powerful to be able to understand that language. And then the programming part is where, as an NLP coach, we start to reprogram or interrupt those scripts or those patterns or those habits that are just run automatically. And, and we ship them to different mental scripts. And NLP it's not a new woo-woo concept. It was developed in the 70s by two hypnotherapy experts who were looking to communicate better with their clients, who were trying to understand what was going on in the background of their minds and actually catering their language and using NLP as a mild form of hypnosis to penetrate their subconscious mind. So anyone who does a neurolinguistic programming course will walk away with like folders and folders of scripts that you can use on your clients and yourself to help rewire the subconscious mind to get you from your present state to your desired state. That's the formula. That's the true formula of NLP, getting you from your present state to your desired state. Now, there's ways we can do that. We can do that through these hypnotic scripts, which a coach will take you through, Or we can even do it through processes. So these processes are like guided imagery scripts where we walk you through a particular process in order for you to change. Now, the thing is, a lot of people actually have this misconception of what NLP is. They think it's this manipulative tool to brainwash you. And it can't be further than the truth. I know because I've been practicing now for 15 years. And and the integrity of the scripts are so sound that there's no way you can manipulate someone because it's not a full-on hypnosis. It's a very mild visualization hypnosis. At the end of the day, the client has the choice whether they want to take that path or not. Another really key distinguishing factor about NLP is that an NLP coach will actually not give you any advice. Their role is to excavate the answer from you. So, in
Okay.
other words, if we were sitting in a coaching session, and you came to me with an issue, I would never say, "Oh, Manisha, you know what? You should go contact him because, he's the one who did you wrong." No,
Yeah.
I would ask something called meta questions. And meta questions help direct your mind towards a part of yourself that's able to come to your own conclusions. Because I don't know your answer. No one will ever know your answer. Only
Right.
you will know it. So it's my role to get you to tap into that self-awareness.
Can you give me an example of a meta question, just so that our audience knows and so that I better understand as well?
Yeah, so there's a whole list of meta questions. But for example, we would never say, well, why did you go down that road and not the other one? We would say, what road would you take instead? There's certain structures for meta questions that you follow. Some of them can sound confusing as well, but the idea is sometimes also to confuse the client when they're in a very receptive state. Because language is a barrier sometimes to accessing ourselves. We have very fixed concepts on what language actually is. And sometimes we take language too literally. So the idea behind the meta questions is to really like just dig into life, getting you to think more about the situation on your own terms.
So you'd be sort of making me question my own actions by thinking about alternatives that I could have taken or could
Exactly.
take.
Or perhaps there's something else. Yeah, exactly. Or perhaps there's something else that you probably have an answer to, that I have no idea about. It could something from your childhood could be brought up, right? Like the idea is to get you to reveal assumptions or beliefs or values beneath your statement. And I'll give you another example of a meta question. So I would say, well, what does that mean to you? Okay, that's not very specific, but that gets you to go deeper into yourself. Okay. Or I can even say, well, when you say I can't, what exactly can't you do? Right? That gets you to go deep again, right?
Perhaps think about why I can't do that or what my
Exactly.
obstacle, like what my own limiting
Exa-
beliefs are.
That's right. That's exactly right. Or for example, what would that look like if it were true? So getting you to go deep, or how are you defining success in this situation? So they're like meaning-based questions that I can't answer for you and that I have no idea about. But the idea is that I want you to go deeper into yourself so that you know you uncover things that might have been buried in the past. Even things like what makes that important to you, or what's stopping you from doing it right now. These are all kind of meta questions that are very valuable in a coaching session. I really have to say, I think it's the reason why NLP has been so successful is because of these meta questions and not giving the answers. And also another example, if you don't mind, like since we're talking
Yeah,
about this.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes,
it's like
please.
imagine this is another way we can use NLP, right? So, for example, before you're going into a big meeting, um, and you've had bad experiences in the past, you could tell yourself, "Oh gosh, I always mess these meetings up. Nothing ever comes out of it." I'm just giving an example of what someone might say to themselves. that thought triggers your nerves, it tightens your body, it affects your state. But if you shift that language even slightly, right, to something that will resonate with you, to like perhaps, and something that's not hard to believe, like I'm getting better every time I do this. Okay. You're literally rewiring your programming before going in. So
So it's the self-talk, really.
it's the self-talk when, and that's how you can use it on yourself. Yes, it's the self-talk. It's the coaching. So there's self-talk, then there's the coaching people through bad memories. Sometimes I even take my clients through erasing painful memories. We have scripts for that. We have scripts for phobias. We have scripts for people looking to anchor confidence in them. Let's say we use something called the anchoring technique. So there's a whole range of kind of scripts that one can use with a coach in order to get from the present state to the desired state. And I keep talking about the present state to the desired state because that's the magic formula behind NLP. So there's a whole range of processes that an NLP coach can actually take you through to get from point A to point B. Point A being your present state, point B being your desired state. And I keep repeating this particular formula because this is the main formula behind NLP. We never look backwards. We only want to look forwards. So it's
And
present
I
state
like
to
that. I
desired.
think that's so important, isn't it? Just to keep sort of looking forward and kind of
Absolutely.
evolving and progressing. Can I
Yes.
ask you, how long would it take for someone to get from that present state to the desired state?
That's a great question because when you work with an, like for example with my clients, usually if there's something that they want to work on specifically, not like a general condition like, oh, I just want to become more motivated in my life, that's very general. But let's say they want to get rid of a bad memory, or they have an image in their mind which they just don't want to think of anymore, and these processes can work just once if it's very specific. And it's amazing. It literally takes like 15 minutes. And then,
Really?
and then, yeah, if you ever to do an NLP course, the first thing you'd be told is that you don't need to take your clients through the same script more than once. Just taking them down that script is enough for something to happen in the rewiring of their subconscious brain, which is totally in charge of almost everything that we do.
It's really fascinating. So, do you use hypnosis as a tool to get sort of someone into that state where you can start using the NLP? Because, like you just said, there's a misconception that it can be a manipulative tool, or it can be,
Yeah.
in some
So
way. Other than that being one of the myths, are there any other myths that you can debunk? And just how does it work? Is it the theta state where you're very relaxed and that's when suggestions can be, I don't know
absorbed.
what the word is. Yes, when suggestions can be
Yeah.
absorbed.
Or embedded. Yeah. So basically, how it works is that we use embedded suggestions, and embedded suggestions are implemented into the scripts. So when you're already in a very mildly hypnotic space, where perhaps you've moved from beta to alpha, that's the first stage before theta. Theta is like sleep, almost close to sleep. Now, during my longer meditations, which I run for groups, a lot of people go into theta because that's like a 45-minute script to 50 minutes. But the shorter scripts, the objective is to at least get their brain waves to calm down and move from beta to alpha. And when this happens, just like you very rightly said, that's when the suggestions get embedded. But not only that, at that point, the person is also relaxed into themselves. These scripts help you not just, reframe the way you think about the world and your subconscious mind, but they also take you to a state where when your brainwaves are in alpha and then theta, if you're lucky, but when they are in alpha, you start getting a lot of realizations. So you start to actually, yeah. So because you're relaxed, The thing is, when we're tense and we're stressed, there's no room for inspiration. But when we are relaxed and when we have had enough time to unwind, that's when all these thoughts and creative moments and next steps start to happen. And that's also one of the beauties of sitting through one of these scripts, is that not only does it embed those patterns or recalibrate those patterns, but it also gives you a chance to experience what it's like to go into that inspired state.
Okay, it's interesting that you say that because I think for me personally, whenever I've been the most creative, or I've had the most creative ideas in my life, it's always literally I've woken up and thought, I have a great idea. And that's when I'll start something new.
So what happens is when you're in this state of alpha to theta, that's when your brain's default mode, that network of neurons start to link things together. And that's why they say it's very good to be bored, because those times are when the brain's default network actually gets activated.
So interesting. Okay, so can you share one 60-second tool to calm nerves for a really hard conversation with someone?
Yeah, sure. So, one of the things that I practice before getting into a hard conversation, and let's face it, we all go through that. Before leaving the house, I always practice my Wim Hof breathing method if I'm on an empty stomach. But another thing that I do is before going into that meeting, I practice self-grounding. So I start to really become present. So I start to really pay attention to my body, because a lot of the times we're in our minds, we're in our head, we're not enough in our body. And the minute we start to center into our body and feel our feet on the floor, I rub my hands together so that I can remember what it feels like to have texture and, like grounding myself into the present moment. And then I mentally rehearse how the situation is going to be. So I actually sometimes close my eyes in the car on the way and I imagine how I'd like it to be. So I use creative imagery. And because I do this so much, it's become like a reflex for me. I affirm at the end. So before walking in, I will say, I am ready and I can do this. I am ready and I can do this. So I think the breathing can be done at home. That's the first step to relaxation. Basically, what we want to do is activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So basically, to answer this question, what you want to do at least an hour before going into that conversation is to practice something that's going to really activate your parasympathetic nervous system. There's two things which I like to do before I leave the house. So it's like a 4-step process. The first thing that I like to do is I do my breathing. And what that does is, again, that takes my brain waves from a very hyper aroused state of mind to a much more relaxed one. When I do that, suddenly on the fourth Wim Hof breath, I like to practice the Wim Hof breath, I will get ideas or some insight will come to me. So I'm already relaxed because I've activated my parasympathetic nervous system. Yet I'm getting a little bit of a breakthrough moment. So that's the first thing. Then I do something which you're probably going to find very strange, but I like to practice humming. And
Okay.
so humming is very good because it activates your vagus nerve. So we're activating the parasympathetic nervous system, but we're also activating the vagus nerve. Now, humming, that can be either in your chanting or in your ohms or even just a simple hum like, or, closing your ears, and that activates your vagus nerve. If you try humming after this conversation, you'll suddenly be like, wow, I feel so relaxed, you know? And so so it really helps and it releases tension in some strange way. Sometimes even after a very, very intense workout, I'll lie back down, I'll be like, and suddenly all the tension melts away. So it's a great, great stress reliever. And
I'm
then wherever
definitely,
we are, yeah,
yeah, I'm
try
going to
it.
try that.
Okay. And then wherever I am, let's say if I'm, taking a taxi to where I need to go or I'm about to get onto a conversation, I just practice this active awareness where I'm like, okay, you know what? This is how I want it to go. So if if it goes this way, that's okay. But how am I prepared to deal with that? Like mentally kind of rehearse the whole thing in your head. And then
Right.
but more future focused on what you want and like actually imagining yourself in so you're scripting. This is called scripting, where you're actually seeing the scene in your head before it even begins, of how it should be. Because what that does is it actually gives instructions to your subconscious mind already at that state to that these are the hows of where we need to go. You may not know it then. You may not consciously suddenly know, well, how am I going to get that, right? But somehow your subconscious mind will be primed through the reticular activating system. So the the reticular activating system is what we pay attention to and is what dictates our behavior. Okay, so and then
So
of
the
course,
how will get figured out somehow.
yes, correct. Because you're scripting in advance. So you're giving instructions to the neurons in your brain already of how it should be. It's actually neuroscience in action and it's miraculous. I mean, I can tell you that much. I do it all the time before I go into my trainings or if I know I'm going to a social event that makes me nervous or I'm going to speak on stage. Everything is scripted beforehand. I don't write it down. I'm not a writer, I'm not a journaler, but I'm mentally scripting it. Yes, mentally scripting. And then, of course, presence, presence and grounding and presence just before you walk in. So there's no like one magic formula to do this, right? Like it's a step by step thing. But actually being like saying to yourself, I am present in myself. I'm present. I'm here. I can do this. You're affirming, but you also feel your body because you want to move away from the mind. The minute you feel present, then suddenly you're much more astute to everyone around you and
Okay.
you pick
So,
up on things.
okay.
Yeah.
So just to ask you, has there been a situation where the self-talk, like say, for example, you're working with a client and the
Yeah.
self-talk for them isn't working? What would you do after that to help them? Because that can happen sometimes. You could be saying things to yourself, but it's just not working.
So if let's say I can hear them saying it to themselves.
Let's say you've taught me a practice or you've
Yeah.
given me a script. Is that how it would work? Like you
No,
would,
I would always do the script on like on you.
okay, you would do the script on me. So
Yeah.
how does the self-talk work after that? So how do I convince myself? And what happens in a situation where when I'm trying to convince myself to do something, like say, for example, you're going onto stage and you're saying that everything's going to be okay. What if it's not okay and that's not working?
Yeah, that's such a good question because the when I said go general with your affirmations. So and we talked about that it doesn't have to be, oh, I'm amazing, or I'm not I'm the best at this, or I'm so confident. That's all fake, right? But what you can do is something like which is more general that you believe is possible. So I'm getting better every time I do this. Let's say you don't believe the self-talk, right? When you're about to get on stage. So you have to be careful with what self-talk you're actually using. So you should never use self-talk that is something you don't believe. Okay, that's fake. That becomes fake. So it should be something that you believe. So what is something that you believe? Okay, if I were to tell you, let's say you're really scared to get onto stage and you have this fear of, maybe messing up the words or forgetting all your lines, right? So rather than say, um, I'm an expert and I can do this and then not believe it, you would tell yourself something like, I'm getting better and better at this every time I do this, right?
Which is
So
believable.
you're exactly, yes. It should be believable and something that, you can that will make you feel better. Um, there's also like you can also say, like, let's say for me, like I've done it so many times. For me, I can just say I can do it. I can do it. I'm present. I can do it. I've done it before. I can do it again, and it's gonna go fine, right? But for people who are like who are scared or who have fear, for them it's a little bit more difficult because they've never experienced that. So you want to trigger the right phrases for them to just give them that level of comfort. You can even say something like this: I'm getting better and better at remembering things every day. So what you're doing is you're triggering the word remembering into your subconscious mind. You're priming the action beforehand, but without it not being unbelievable. Do you know what I mean? I'm 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 yeah, I'm very against those affirmations which are like, I'm the best at like all this stuff which it is not believable. No, we want to get like to a very general place which you can really like take and like know in your heart that it's possible, you know?
So, would you say that there is a fine line between NLP and affirmations then?
Yeah, definitely. Because affirmations are used like, so they're so widespread now that you don't actually even know what an affirmation is anymore. They're so misused. And at this point in time, if I were to just pick up an affirmation from the internet, I would have no idea what the foundation or the basis of it really was. There has to be a science behind the words of the affirmation. And this is why I love NLP, because it directs you towards a particular direction. It takes you away from the negative, it takes you to the future, and it keeps it positive, but it keeps it achievable. It's outcome oriented.
That's really interesting. So, where do you see NLP helping the most? Would you say it's for people who are working with parenting, relationships, self talk?
So, really, it is super powerful for people who are just looking to grow. It doesn't matter in what way. I have used it in my parenting techniques. I have used it on myself. I have used it in my business. I have clients, I have men who come to me and they can't sleep. I use it for them as well. Yes, because the scripts are kind of designed to help their subconscious mind, relax, and also become more receptive to sleep. I have mothers that come to me that need advice on career change, or they're mid-career and they're like, we don't know where to go next. We think we want to do this, but we're a bit scared. And so, then I take them through a couple of processes for that. It can be used for couples as well. You can use NLP on couples. You can use it to really help your communication skills. I work with a lot of executives that are struggling to communicate with their teams. So, for example, there's a mismatch in their communication style. So, you can actually, just by understanding someone's language, which is what I teach in NLP, is to understand what words are they using, how are they using it, and what can you do to match that language. So, this can also be used in a business setting as well. You can also use the body language element of it to really develop rapport with people. So, I use that in my sales trainings too, the nonverbal communication aspect. So it is something that anyone can do. I just would not recommend it to young adults under the age of 18. I feel 18 is a good age to begin. Anything than that is a bit too young, because just simply because of the fact that their brains are not fully developed until they're in their 20s. But I have run, for example, my kids through very mild meditations like NLP meditations, and it's worked. It's fantastic. It's probably one of the best modalities I've ever been exposed to. Most realistic, most long term, most practical, most science backed, most holistic. It doesn't just cover verbal, it covers the nonverbal too. So
So I was going to say
Yeah.
communication is important in every aspect of our life, right? With every relationship, whether it's like you said, a business setting with your children, with a partner, because whether you communicate verbally or through, like you said, nonverbal communication, we will pick that
Yes.
up, right?
Yes. Because, and very rightly said, because 58% of our communication is in the nonverbals. That means just body language. And then 38, yeah, and 38% is in our voice tone and our expression. And that just leaves like some 7 to 9% in the words we speak.
I think a lot
It's
of us forget that as well. We sort of focus on what people say, but actually it's their
yes.
body language. And sometimes what they
Yes.
don't say can actually be so powerful as well.
And I love that you say that, because a lot of the time we think that we're listening to someone, but our bodies are picking up other signals from them. So our bodies are also interacting with each other. The communication that's happening is not just happening through words, it's our bodies are actually either in synchrony or they're not. And that's why they say, always follow your gut instinct or whatever. But it's not just that. Brainwaves actually interact, they sync up with each other when you're in rapport with someone. And this has been measured. It's called brainwave synchrony, if I'm not mistaken.
And that's so interesting because we use the word rapport so lightly, but actually there's, a deeper meaning to it.
It's huge. It's huge. If you don't have rapport with the person you're speaking to, nothing will go past them.
Right. Okay. So, how do you turn ideas into habits that really stick without sort of being overwhelmed?
That's a really great question. And I wrote about this a lot in my book Whole, and in the chapter on willpower. So willpower, as you must know, is really, it's a muscle, right? So it's not something that just happens. It's the same thing as happiness. Happiness, you're not born with happiness. You're not born with willpower. These are skills that you need to learn. So real willpower is not about pushing harder. Okay. It's about identifying and aligning with what you want and with who you are. And so I don't like to really call um, things that are meant to be habits. I try and not say habits, because the habits should actually be part of your routine. So they should be who you are. And you can build your identity around those habits. So start small, of course, link it to what matters to you. And consistency is key. And just, you have to, every time you stick to that habit, you're proving to your brain that you're worth it each time. A little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, that you can stick to what you say you're going to do. Of course, there's a lot of elements behind that. So, for example, number one, what about your environment? Is your environment conducive to that lifestyle? We won't call it a habit, we'll call it a lifestyle. So, are your socks laid out on your bed, okay, the night before your workout? Is your water bottle already in the fridge with the ice cold water? Whatever, is your environment ready? The second thing is it chunkable enough? So, for example, is it such a big task that needs to be conquered on a daily basis? If that's the case, it's going to be impossible, even for the person with the strongest willpower, to be able to conquer that. So it has to be chunked down into very achievable micro steps. And, a lot of people say to me, but I honestly don't even know why I'm doing it. Like, I was told I should
Mhm.
do it. And then I say
Right.
to them, the minute you start using should, or I have to, or I must, you're cheating yourself already. It should not be in that way. You have to find your why. What's your why behind it? Are you doing it because you've been told to, or is it because you're afraid of some effect if you don't? What's your why behind it? So, your environment, chunking it down to simple steps, finding your why, committing to yourself, because that's your biggest gift. The more you commit to those small, tiny things every day, the easier it becomes part of your lifestyle, but it's also that faith in yourself. And this starts trickling down into all areas of your life. So if you're struggling with commitment in another area, the fact that you can hold strong and committed to this area will start percolating into all other areas. And also another thing which I wrote about in whole is that when we meditate, the same region in our brain that is associated with meditation is the same region in our brain that is associated with willpower. So when you meditate, you're actually strengthening that area in that region of the brain that's responsible for willpower. So it's actually linked, and there have been MRI studies to prove this. I really went into this very deep in my book Whole. I was trying to find the correlation. And so it is shown that people that meditate, because they're activating that part of their brain, that region, that they're actually able to stick to what they say they're going to do. They have much more willpower than those who are non-meditators.
And it's interesting you say that, because even with my clients, sometimes, whether they want to lose weight or whether they're trying to improve a health condition, I always give them, the clients that I have given sort of a specific meditation, they're the ones that actually find it easier to follow through with a plan. And like you said, sort of chunkable goals. And, believing,
Yeah.
I think it has to be intrinsic, right? They have to want to do it. And that's where the behavior change comes in, because, I can say to someone, or you can say to someone as much as, we can, that this is what you should be doing and this is what's going to be good for you. But unless they believe it and they want that behavior change, it doesn't really happen.
Absolutely. And so, the minute you hear someone say, I need to, or I have to, or I should, right? That's when that's when the alarm bells go off. Uh-oh, they're not living in their own why. They're living in someone else's why.
Yeah, that's really important, to live in your own why.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are the top non-verbal cues to watch in tense conversation?
Okay. So I love this topic. It just intrigues me. It's one of my favorite things to teach. Um, when you notice that someone is started to kind of, if there's resistance, they will, when you're, okay, let me explain this in a very simple way. When you are in deep rapport with someone, you'll naturally mirror or match their body language. So you'll end up doing the same things as them without realizing it. If they're leaning forward, you'll realize that you're actually leaning forward. If their arms are crossed, you'll also slowly start to, but you have no conscious awareness of this, right? Now, how do you sense resistance in someone else is when their body language starts to mismatch yours. In other words, there's a complete opposite of mirroring going on. So if you sense resistance in someone, let's say you're leaning forward and you're explaining to them something across the table, the minute you start to see them lean back and perhaps move their knees or their feet to a different direction, you know that there's something not into, even though their torso is facing you and they're nodding and they're smiling and they're seem to be completely fine and engaged. This mismatch of body language is a huge cue on whether there's some resistance or tension. The second thing is anytime the hands go above the neck region. So, for example, if someone actually starts to scratch their nose, um, or has their hand on their mouth area like this, or is
Right.
kind of holding the back of their neck, or is like, scratching here. Anything that kind of crosses this upper ventricular kind of throat area is a sign that they're uncomfortable. It doesn't mean that there's tension. It means that there's some discomfort there. But you have to baseline this. So someone could naturally just have grown up doing this their whole life, right? And so then that's your baselining. So it's not accurate then, because this is like their standard. So if someone grew up like having this as like a habitual body language behavior, then you can't really baseline that. But if, let's say, their hands are down and you've been with them for half an hour, and suddenly you start to see their hand going up and going behind their neck or front of their neck or here or scratching their nose. By the way, we all scratch our nose when we're uncomfortable. All of us, even I do. And I have to
Really?
catch
Okay.
myself. Yes. Like sometimes even just listening to an uncomfortable piece of information is enough to get me to scratch my nose. Or if I'm saying something which is making me nervous, I'll scratch my nose. So scratching the nose is a very big sign, not of tension necessarily, but of discomfort. So we need to understand what's the difference between tension and discomfort. So tension is when there's like a loss of rapport. And then discomfort is when someone is feeling may not have anything to do with you, but something has triggered their nervous system to go into a bit of like a fight or flight mode, you know? And then that's when the hands reach above the this this area and closer towards the face or the neck or whatever. This here is like to protect the main artery that runs from our body, from our head, from our brain to down our body. So this is something that not many people know about, and it's something that I teach in my workshops. Now, there are other things that people can do, and the other things are like, for example, something known as partial barriers. So if someone is uncomfortable, they may just cross one arm over it. You know that whole theory about crossing your arms, and so you're not, it's nonsense. Okay, there's no proof of
Okay.
that. In
Okay,
fact,
so
there's a
I've
lot of
stopped crossing my arms with everyone because I think it's so negative, and I've just stopped
yeah.
doing that completely.
Well, it's not necessarily positive. So it's fine to totally stop. But there's also some research to say that people that cross their arms are actually connecting their right and left brain. So they're in deep thought. So there's also that research that's come out. So this whole crossing your arms thing, don't listen to it. But if you notice and you're baselining that someone crosses over and they do something known as the partial arm barrier, it's almost like a hugging gesture. That means that there's something that's creating discomfort in them.
So is that like self-soothing?
Yes, it's a self-soothing mechanism. That's correct. And people also do this subconsciously on meeting tables with you. So for example, if you're having a coffee with someone and there's some mismatch or there's a misalignment between the two of you, you may notice that they're starting to shift things in between you and them on the table. So, like a coffee mug. So, ordinarily, when I'm sitting with someone and I'm in deep rapport with them, I'll move everything out of the way. It's just a subconscious thing. I don't even know I'm doing it, right? But when you start to feel some discomfort, this becomes your kind of barrier. So people who place their coffee mugs, and I know it sounds crazy, right in front of them and in between the two of you, there's something there. And it might be so subtle that they have no idea that that's even going on in their brain, but it is happening.
It's funny you say that because I do that a lot actually. If I'm with someone and I'm a little bit uncomfortable, I'll sort of start arranging things in such a way that there's like a little barrier between us.
That's amazing. That's great awareness.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wanted to talk about parents, and because sometimes as parents, we say things, we do things that can be a little bit upsetting, and obviously we try and do the best that we can. But what
Yes.
is a common shaming phrase that parents use by accident, and what are kind of replacements?
Okay. Well, there's so many. But I think it's the philosophy of parenting that's being used. A lot of parents that are not educated in the growth mindset are still saying things like big big kids don't cry, or you why are you crying, or you're being so dramatic, or um I don't know, maybe you should know better, or why can't you be more like your sister, why can't you be more like your brother, or I'm disappointed in you. There's so many other ways of saying these things to our kids that are more based on not attacking them personally, but actually giving them tools or questioning them. And that's why meta questioning becomes so imperative. Like replacing with like, oh, you're being so dramatic, with like, okay, I can see that this feels really big for you right now. So you're not like dismissing the emotion, because the more you acknowledge the emotion, that validates them. And we need to show our kids that emotions are safe to express, not something to keep buried under. And it's also about acknowledging like that it's okay to feel sad. I'm here with you. I get it. I've been there before, you know? Um, so and that also keeps the doorway open with them to us, right? Like, or for example, like, oh, why did you do that? You should know better. Like, that's, some parents can't help it, right? It's a reflex. It's how maybe perhaps our elders had said.
Liberates. Yeah.
Yeah. So, instead of saying that, you can say, well, look, that look, it didn't really go the way that you planned. What could you have done instead? It's it's those kind of questions that are leading them towards the future, that are leading them towards a solution without um, implying that they failed. It's like reflective questions.
Okay. And what's good repair language, whether it's with your children, friends, colleagues? Because, sometimes we find it very hard to apologize or
Yes.
acknowledge that we've had any sort of part in any miscommunication. So, what's good repair language that someone can use?
I mean, I love this question. I've never heard of that term before, but I love that repair language. And I'm going to remember that. So I think repair language has to really come down to two things. If you have made the mistake, you have to acknowledge to them that you're aware you've made the mistake, and I think that there's all this fear of saying it the right way. It's not about that. It's more about the fact that they know and that you're aware that you were in the wrong. So there's no like perfect language. Like, there's all this stuff on the internet saying, stop saying sorry, say thank you for being so patient with me. Right? Have you seen that? On the internet, it's everywhere. It's like, oh, stop saying sorry, you know, um, and stop saying sorry, and instead show your appreciation for how they were patient with you, or how you have gratitude that they waited, or etc etc. That's not real. real a real apology is apologizing. It is
I
saying
agree
I'm
with you.
sorry.
I completely agree with you because I think sort of having that self-awareness that perhaps you need to have some input into this and sort of acknowledge that you've had some miscommunication with someone. I think sorry and just apologizing can be so powerful. And
Yeah,
I
it's
think that's an
everything.
immediate repair. Yeah.
That's an immediate repair. That in itself is enough. You don't even have to say too much after that, because the fact that you're showing them that you're aware of it and that you're willing, that the relationship is important enough for you to lower your ego to that level, is already enough. You don't even have to justify. Even just a sorry is fine.
And I think you're right. I think when you picked up on that word ego, because it all stems from our ego, doesn't it? So how does NLP how does that work with someone's ego?
So I've had clients that come in just so fixed in their belief system. And because of something known as cognitive dissonance, if your current belief doesn't match what someone else is showing you, something in your brain happens. It's called cognitive dissonance, and you start to repel them because your brain is hardwired to believe what it believes already, right? So that's when the ego steps in, and that's when resistance starts. And what people realize over time is they're able to see that. So they'll be like, okay, why was I resisting? So my role is to actually take them there. What was it in you just now that had the resistance to that? And I take them straight into it. Like there's no going around the bush, because we want fast results. So the only way we can get fast results is to get them out of that me, myself, I thinking mode, and to push them towards what in me is resisting this. Is there room for me to be flexible here? What in me is causing the ego to come up? And you know what? Sometimes the most amazing discoveries of where they've had this issue in the past. So, for example, perhaps at 16-year-old, as a 16-year-old, they experience being bullied into a situation or forced into a situation which they didn't want to be in. Perhaps that might crop up with them. So, but all of this is in a very monitored state where I take them into a very light guided meditation. And that so they're able to access those memories, because when you're tense and stressed, you cannot you cannot access memories. I know when I'm stressed, I forget everything. So the sessions are very helpful because you get a lot of self-awareness. And then after like 2, 3 sessions, that ego starts to dissipate because you start to see results. You start to see growth. And then you get addicted to it. You're like, I want to work on this next. I want to do this next with you. It's like that.
And I suppose, let's say if someone came to you for a particular reason, they wanted to improve a particular aspect of their life, I suppose your teachings or whatever you're doing can benefit every aspect of their life because it would sort of create some sort of awareness.
Yeah, of course, definitely. Because just like you said, it percolates, right? So this is very much true because when there's such a high level of self-awareness, the issue that you came with starts the solution starts to percolate amongst all other problems you have, because that particular limiting belief or cognitive dissonance could be blocking the other things in your life. So it's about getting that real self-awareness. It's about really probing into yourself so that you don't make you don't face those stumbling blocks anymore. So
Because, so many
absolutely.
people will say, I know what to do, I just don't do it. Right. So,
Yes, I know what to do, and I don't do it. And this is something I hear a lot. And people sometimes come to me and say, I have all the steps, I have all the resources, I have all the knowledge, but I don't do it. And then what next? What is it that you can't do? Really, think about it. What is it there that you can't do, right? So this is where meta questioning comes into place. Perhaps they have a fear of failure, but more often than not, there's often a fear of success. And this is what goes against most theories. So let me explain. A lot of the times, the side effects that come with being successful are scary. Perhaps you have to travel more. Perhaps the people that you're close to will have some resistance towards it. Perhaps your followers will not accept the change and the growth. There are so many different layers to being successful that a lot of people shy away from it because there's that element of fear of what you might lose as a result of that success. I talk about it so much in my book Whole, there's a whole chapter just dedicated to the fear of failure and the fear of success. But I really enjoyed writing that chapter on the fear of success. Why? Because when I was writing it, I started to see all my loopholes. I started to see all my blind spots, you know? So that's what's usually blocking progress for most people, you know? So that question is a good one.
so is it sort of sitting with your own comfort? When you become successful, you have to show up for yourself. You have to do a lot more. And
Yes.
people have to change their own behavior. And then there's also the acceptance from other people as well. Other people have to
Yes.
change. And sometimes knowing that, you might not be accepted perhaps by the people that you're surrounded with, you just like everything to be comfortable, right?
Yeah. We stick in those comfort zones. But I think one of the biggest fears of being successful is just that, what you mentioned. It's the fear of not belonging anymore. The fear that the people who support you won't support you anymore because you've grown and they haven't. And there's that almost that conscious, that feeling of, being overconscious, not wanting to stand out. And one of our biggest um motivating factors of being on this earth in this lifetime is belonging to a community. And when you lose that sense of community or society because, of success, that's a scary thing. That is a scary thing. I mean, I can tell you that I have blocked myself from so many opportunities because something in me knows that if I go that far, I don't know where that's headed. And I want to just play it safe because, we have all these fixed categories of where we've come from. We're women, we have families. We can't really go down that route and all that, right? Like there's so many limitations we place on ourselves, which I hope our
Yes, I
daughters
agree.
don't have to go through. Yeah.
And I think I'm becoming more sort of self-aware of my own limiting beliefs as well, actually. And I think it's so important to have that self-awareness.
It is. I always say to my clients, I say 90% of your problems will be solved with self-awareness. That's it. You don't need to know how and why and where they came from. You just need to know what they are. And that's my favorite thing to tell them because it's so true. Because we are actively working on those things when we're aware. We don't know that we're doing it, but we are.
And I suppose that's a good place, a good starting point for NLP to actually start working. Because when you're
Yeah.
self-aware and, it's an intrinsic, change that you want to make, then that's when perhaps would the NLP be more receptive then?
So, people that come to me already for NLP already have quite a high level of self-awareness because they're already aware that they want to change in some ways. So
Yeah.
I feel very blessed. I have great clients. I've never had a client that's resisted or had any, issues with going into themselves. I can see that happening, but I can see that happening with people who were forced into a session, let's say, or that were told that they need to do it. But for most of my clients, I've never experienced someone who's not self aware. Someone who's not self aware would never even come to a session in the first place unless they were forced.
Okay. All right, Pooja. So we're going to go straight into our session now. This is a quick fire round. It's called Tell Me More.
Okay.
And so I'd like to start with one belief you changed your mind about.
One belief I changed my mind about. Okay. Okay. So you're gonna find this funny, but I remember saying to myself that I'm not a writer. I never ever saw myself as a writer. I would always assume writers were these fiction book people and I never ever thought I could see myself as an author. Never. And then one day in 2017, I decided to sit down. I have no idea what pulled me there. I still don't know to this day. But I remember sitting down on that desk and saying, you know what? This content is king. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your efforts. Most people don't even have access to this, you know? And so I remember, so that's a belief I've completely changed about myself is that I can be an author if I really, that's a belief that, I really, I still can't believe now to this day that I actually was so staunch in that belief system. And even when the book was about to be published, I still didn't believe that I was an author. That's how much imposter syndrome I had. But now, and when people introduce me, like today, where was I? Oh yes, I went to someone's house. I was being introduced to a guru. And one of my friends said, oh, you have to meet Pooja. She's a writer. And in my head, I thought, oh my God, am I a writer? Or like what? Like, I still can't believe it. But yeah, that's amazing, right? Like, that's a belief that just changed on its own. Yeah. So,
Okay. So my second question, a grounding practice that you can give that works in under a minute. Because we're all
okay.
sort of, always rushed. So something
Yeah.
that works fast, perhaps, for someone.
So there's a grounding technique where you see 5 things around you, and then 4 things that you hear around you, then 3 things that you feel, 2 that you can actually smell, and then 1 that, and I can't remember what the other one was, but that's a quick grounding technique that is under 60 seconds. Quite frankly, for me, grounding is not really in these techniques. It's more about me coming closer to my present awareness of my body. So Eckhart Tolle talks about this, and he talks about feeling your body Feeling your hands, feeling your stomach, dropping your shoulders, unclenching your jaws, feeling your back against the chair, allowing your feet to touch the ground. That is grounding. That is taking your mind away from your thoughts, away from the mind, into the body. And the minute you do that, you suddenly feel a sense of presence. When you feel that sense of presence, that's when you know, okay, I'm here right now. I can see my hands. I can feel the weight on the chair right now. You know, I can touch the ground. That's real grounding. There's other techniques like the 5 4 3 2 1. That's great for people who have anxiety, right? Like that's like to stop them from being anxious. So that's where that technique came about. It was like like someone's having a panic attack. You tell them, look around you and see 5 things that you can see, right? Okay, what are 4 things you can hear? That's a grounding practice, but that's different. That's more for anxiety.
Okay. All right. So, what about a phrase that you can use to reset your self talk? Just a quick
Hmm,
phrase.
quick phrase. Okay, well, I'm a big believer in surrendering. So one of the things that comes to me very, very naturally is let go and let God. So
Oh,
if
I like
there's,
that.
yeah, if there's something I really can't control and I find myself starting to like grapple towards it and overthinking it, hey, Pooja, it's done. What's done is done. That's it. You can't go back. It's fine. Now let go and let God. So let go and let God. And let's say it's someone's behavior towards you, um, let go and let God. Again, that's not something we can control. Um, Another thing that really
And
helps
there's
me
a
when
really
I'm
popular phrase. Sorry, go on.
go ahead, go, tell me.
Um, and then there's, what I see, a phrase that I see very often is let them as well.
Yes, that's Mel Robbins. Yeah, just let them, and it's true, right? Um, uh, it has nothing to do with you. Um, it is not about letting them walk all over you. It's about letting them just be who they are. And in spiritual terms, if you were to really embrace that in a spiritual way, you would say, live and let live. So you live, you stay in your own lane, and you let them live in their own lane. Live and let live.
Yeah. And
It's
that really has
beautiful.
nothing to do with you, your behavior.
Yeah. And it's so liberating when you can live in that frame of reference because suddenly it's like you don't, you're surrendering that. You're surrendering their behavior to their own higher power. So they have their own higher power there, right? Yeah.
Okay. So, what is a book other than your book, other than Whole, that you like to gift or that you like reading?
Okay. So I'm a big fan of the longevity movement. So I love the book, what's it called? Outlive. Outlive by Peter Attia. And I'll just give you the exact title. Um, I got so excited. I saw it in a doctor's clinic and I went and ordered it from the bookstore. Yeah, Outlive the Science and Art of Longevity by Dr. Peter Attia. And instead of Diwali gifts, I gave this to my closest friends this year. So,
Brilliant Diwali gift.
isn't it? It's just, I was like, look, guys, firstly, I'm not even going to be in town. And secondly, I really want you guys to read this. It is so good. It's something that you can also use for your parents. Like you can tell them what tests you've read the book, right?
Haven't. It's on my list
Okay.
actually.
Okay, you love it. It will just work like it's perfect for your practice, and what you speak about. It tells you what tests to run for certain type of profiles of people and, et cetera, et cetera. But really fantastic. So
Yeah.
that's a book that I don't mind giving away.
Fortunately, the only books I read are on, well, I wouldn't say unfortunately, but I suppose because of my work, they're all
Yeah.
nutrition related, longevity related. So that's definitely on my list. And
Yeah.
yes, one
Yeah.
to add.
Yeah, it's one of the best
Okay.
ones. I've read a lot, but it's really for me, it just stood out. He writes so well and he's super specific and he's super cutting edge.
Yeah. Okay, so what's one question you ask yourself when you feel stuck, or one question everyone should ask themselves, actually?
When they feel stuck?
Feeling stuck.
Um, I think one of the biggest things to ask when you feel stuck is stuck. Okay, let's get a bit specific. So stuck with what?
Stuck in any situation. Just, I think I'm like that sometimes. I sort of maybe not procrastinate, but, I wonder and I'm like, I'm not really sure about this. So, in any situation, is there a tool or a question that we can ask ourselves to kind of help that process a little bit faster?
So you mean like stuck between two decisions?
Two decisions, or stuck in a situation where you don't know what to do, perhaps.
So something is stalling you to make decisions. Okay, so I'm meta questioning you right now. So I'm actually using the NLP technique on you.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's interesting.
I'm chunking you down. So I'm actually
You're
doing a
chunking me down.
process on you.
Okay,
Okay, so
so
so let's get a bit specific. So stuck on what?
So, Pooja, it's so interesting that you've done that sort of analysis with me, because now I've picked up and I think it's highlighted that you're absolutely right. For me, it's just that one aspect of my life. And I've been relating it to everything, but actually it's just that one area. So thank you very much.
A pleasure. And the next step after that would be to actually do an NLP process to help you decide where you want to go with that decision. It's known as the parts integration. So I'm happy to do that with you as well.
That sounds really amazing, and I will definitely be doing that. Thank you, Pooja. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Manisha. That was incredible. I mean, you asked such great questions. You really got me thinking again about a lot of the concepts that I teach, and I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Pooja,
Okay.
thank you for the clear tools that you've shared with us today and a kinder approach to transformation. NLP gives everyone a practical toolkit to manage their state, speak clearly, and turn intentions into action at home, at work, and with themselves. If this conversation helped you, please follow and subscribe and save this episode for your next tough day. Thank you to our sponsor, Nutrition Band, for supporting today's episode. You can find the link below. Until next time, honor your values and choose one small action you can repeat daily.